Hi, in the demo lesson, I will be going over today, just for demo, how to hold a violin, how to do a bow hold, how to take care of your violin, and how to do some basic playing. So beginning with the bow hold, this is probably the most simple, but most has the biggest impact on your tone and playing eventually. So to begin, you want to place your thumb on the little wooden bit over here, right between the grip and the frog. So right here is where the thumb will be placed, and the rest of your hand kind of wraps around the bow like this. Now for the younger students out there, it's also a viable option to put your thumb at the bottom of the piece so that you have a better control of the bow. But for people who have decent sized hands, you can just put your thumb right here. And the way the rest of the hand wraps around, your two fingers will go around the grip here, and your ring finger will wrap around at the black piece, and then the rest will just kind of curl around as if you're holding a cup. When you're holding a cup and you wrap around the rim, that's what you do, and then you'll wrap around here just like that. Now the pinky is probably the most important part. You definitely want your pinky to stand up so that when you hold the bow, you have full control of how high or low the bow goes just with your pinky. And your pointer index finger will wrap around nice and tight so you have good control, and your whole hand is going to be flat so that when you're playing you have maximum tone, control, and better sounding playing eventually when you play. Now the violin hold is obviously the most important part. To begin, we're going to place it on our left shoulder with the shoulder resting nice and snug on our shoulder, and then you're going to kind of lean your face into the violin. Now what the hand does is very important. We want to start by visualizing a little balloon on this part of your hand. Now a balloon flows upwards, so this has to always be floating upwards, as you can see. And what this creates is more control over your fingers onto the string. And also, you can reach all four strings without having to move your wrist around, which will waste time and give you a terrible tone eventually. So to begin, we want to have our hand resting on here, and remember, your hand isn't necessarily holding the violin up so much as it is resting on the string. What's holding it up is your chin and your cheeks on the violin, pressing down so that when you let go of your hand, it's right there. So balloon up, fingers curled, nice and high. The fingers are gonna be straight up and they can't be flattened down, or else you'll have bad intonation eventually. So yeah, that's the basic violin holds and bow holds. And make sure you practice this on a daily basis, because this is easily the most important and impactful part of your playing. Now, how to take care of your violin? Well, your violin, it's gonna accumulate rosin and sweat and dust, and just like anything else, you need to clean it. So the smallest but most kind of everyday part of cleaning is just wiping down your strings, because that's where your hands will be touching the most. Now what your hand does is that it accumulates oil, like when we plug the strings. That's also why we don't want to plug here, or else we get oil on the strings where we play, and that's really bad. So you'll often see a little white dust accumulate on your strings. You want to take them individually and wipe them down. Now when you wipe it down, you eliminate the rosin, and it really helps when you play in the future to have your bow grip the strings. And you also want to wipe down kind of the part below the strings. That's also important because obviously rosin can accumulate there too. And then finally, just the fingerboard area, because that's where your fingers are touching the most, and that's where the oil will accumulate the most. Now to take care of your bow, the most important part, perhaps, and the mistake that I made the most as a kid, is touching the string. You do not want to touch the bow hairs. It's just bad for your bow, and when oil accumulates on that, you'll have a bad time and a hard time getting the rosin on there. So when we play the violin, we're gonna tighten our bow, not until it's a straight line, but it's gonna have some curvature to it, but it's gonna be tight when we play. So after we finish playing, obviously we have to loosen it. the bow hair will almost touch the wooden part, and that's about it. It's very simple to take care of your bow. Now, onto the actual playing. It's very simple. Okay, we're gonna begin just by playing an open string on our A string. We're gonna have our perfect bow hold with our fingers curled around the bow, and a perfect violin hold with the scroll nice and high, and our face resting on the rest, and our fingers curled around the A string. Although we won't have it on the A string because we're not playing any notes right now. We're just playing the open A. Now, the important part about having a good tone from the very start is notice how I'm not actually pressing on the string, because that creates that scratchy noise that you don't really want. So to begin, we're gonna have our shoulders weight on the string, and it's all that seem kind of complex, but it's better to learn this day one than to have to correct it later on, which is always gonna be a pain. So our shoulder weight is going to be resting into it, our arms weight is resting into it, and many pros just do this without thinking, but when you begin, you want to have the conscious thought to be pressing so that there's no scratchy noise, but it's also a nice loud ringing tone. Okay, and another tip when you play is that you want to play right. You make sure you don't want to play on the black part or too close to the bridge. You want to play nice in the middle. Okay, so to begin to practice this to practice this playing technique, just do nice long bow. And you want to get a hang of playing back and forth nice and smoothly. And notice that when you go down, your elbow stretches and contorts. Now, what a lot of people will do when they start is... Notice how my elbow did not turn there at all. And when that happens, you notice how the bow goes back and forth like that. And that's not what we want to do. We want it to go straight up and down, right? So that's where the elbow comes in. And that's kind of the basis of all playing. Whenever you play, you're going to play like that. Now, a little bit of a more advanced tip is what you do with your hands what you do with your fingers and your wrist. So it's going to have it's going to go down naturally, because if we want our bow to be straight up and down, we naturally have to move our fingers. If we don't, it's going to go up, it's going to go to the side. So we have to move our fingers. And notice how it stretches and compresses as we play. So when we go down, it's going to stretch out and out more until our fingers are practically straight. If you have short fingers like me, this will happen very fast. But if it doesn't, you can try not to do it. And when it goes up, our fingers will compress and tighten around the bow like a snake, right? See how it's all curved? So that's kind of an important part when we eventually will be playing with only our wrist, fast. This is the basis of fast playing. And now, if you want to incorporate some notes, it's easy to start from the A string. The A string, the first finger, an easy way to remember that is just call it A1. Now, A1 is also known as B. So now it's good to just practice having your finger down on the right spot, and eventually you can add more and more notes and form what's called a scale, which is from the low A to the high A. And practicing scales is also the ultimate basic of higher playing, because even pros practice it regularly. So you go from A to A, and that's how you practice good swinging bow, good long bows, and good proper intonation with your fingers. And I could go into more details about fingerings, but that'll take a much longer video. Thank you.